Okay, here we are again. Welcome to our second episode with Jean-Francois Tremblay, Mr. CanLab himself. I'm Natalie Nidham. I'm a holistic nutritionist and a bulletproof human potential coach. Mr. Jeff Robinson is here. Why don't you introduce yourself, Jeff?
My name's Jeff. I run one of the Facebook groups online, BioHacking for Superhuman Performance, and the other one that's
with me,
with Natalie, and another one that's more tailored towards to chronic health conditions, leaky gut, Crohn's disease, that sort of thing. But my background is exercise physiology and self-experimentation.
Excellent. And we have Jean-Francois here, who we've introduced before, but we'll introduce again for people who don't know him. Jean-Francois runs, I think you run or own CanLab in Montreal.
I do both.
Huh?
I do both.
He does both. He's a man that wears many hats, has a master's in pharmacy and a rather extensive history, educational history, including many, many amazing disciplines. And he currently is the peptide guru to many of our groups. So tonight he's going to share some of his wisdom with us, I think. So I'm going to start just by saying that one of the topics we were going to talk about tonight was Jean-Francois was graciously offering to run some testing in his lab on how long peptides really last after reconstitution. This is like a raging debate all over the place. Everybody wants to know. And these results are going to come, but as you can imagine, it takes time. It's complicated. So we don't have much to share with you yet tonight. But there is one thing that I think we were just talking about this earlier, and maybe Jean-Francois, you want to talk about it a little bit, that peptides are not milk. And so
yeah, I mentioned that before. They don't turn bad like milk. Like they're good for 3 days and then bang, they're bad. They all degrade eventually at different rates. Some will degrade very, very slowly, some much faster, like MOTS C degrades faster, thymosin alpha-1 degrades faster, but the test we're gonna do, or I think they started already. I haven't been to the lab this week yet, but I think it started. What it will show is when we talk degradation, it's, let's say you test the peptide the first day and it's 99%. So then on second day, then maybe it's gonna be, depending on the speed, but let's say peptide X. So next day it's 98%, maybe it degrades 1% per day. So 10 days after, you still have 90%, and that 90% is fully active, fully working. You just get 90%, which is clinically, it's great.
Relevant.
It's very, it's still, and that's why you have compounding pharmacies in the US where they ship it already reconstituted, and yes, there is some degradation in the shipping, in the process, but it's still good and it still works. And with or without that degradation, it's still work good enough that actually you don't clinically you don't notice the difference.
Right. So when you say it degrades, is it that, do you know what that means? Like, so the proteins break. So do they become inactive? Like then you're just getting amino acids?
They become fragments. No, not amino acid. It doesn't degrade because some amino acid bonds, some of them are weaker than others.
Right.
So if you have one of those weak bonds, that's why you can predict, actually looking at the formula, not me, because I'm not that good in biochemistry, but somebody who works like my biochemist, he can tell me, say, yeah, this one, it won't be very stable because of that bond. It breaks easily. And some other, like BPC157, doesn't have any of those weak bonds, so it's a much more stable to start
with.
Compared to the weak. It still degrades, but you know, it's all relative.
Sure.
And that there is a funny thing about the MOTS C, because when I was at that conference, they shoot out that thing, you know, you have to inject it within 4 hours. And I remember last year when we synthesized the first batch of MOTS C, which I didn't put up on the website at the time because I had no clue of dosages, so I didn't know what to do with it, so it's just there. But I remember before he synthesized it, he told me, he says, yeah, that one won't be very stable. You should make unidose vials when you find out the dosage. But after he synthesized it, he say, oh no, it's much more stable than what I expected. So again, the impression I have of those people who came up with the 4 hours, I think they got that thing from the theoretical knowledge of biochemistry. They look at the molecule and they say, no, that won't be very stable. It's going to break down very fast.
Right.
But the reality, and that's why I decided, because of what Alain told me, he said, no, it's not that unstable. So we're going to test it. It's for my personal thing. And, you know, to be sure. So we'll know soon, which is a very relative term too. We'll know what's the degradation
before Christmas,
rate.
most likely.
Oh, for sure. So we'll know the degradation rate of MOTS C, thymosin alpha 1, and I threw in a few other ones just to know thymosin beta 4, because today I was kind of corrected on my web page.
Yeah, I saw that.
And because anyway, so we're gonna check that one. We made 1 gram of the actual 7 peptides, TB500. We'll put them in vials, so if people want to try it. It has some advantage over the thymosin beta 4 if you want to repair, because being a much smaller peptide, it's 7 amino acids instead of 43. So per milligram,
it's more potent.
You have like 6 times more molecules. So it's 6
times
more
concentrated.
So it's not concentration. You have like more molecules per milligram. You have 6 times more. So the healing effect for the same milligram should be 6 times more. And that's why sometimes you may hear like that company that sells that's TB500 dot something.
Yeah.
I think when they started, they were selling the actual 7 amino acid, and they had amazing results. And people, they take then the thymosin beta 4 and they don't get that strong results. That's because they should take 6 times more of the beta 4 to get that healing of tissue equivalent to those initial studies. So when you look at studies, you have to look at, did they use the 7 amino acid or the 43?
So TB500 is the 7 amino acid chain.
Yeah.
Oh, and when's that going to be up on your site?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
We synthesized it a couple of months ago. It was for me. I want to try it, but I'll put it up if people. It's
so you'll share.
Plus, it's cheaper, so you in it, but it doesn't do other things that thymosin beta 4 does.
So, like what?
Thymosin beta 4 has some activity on the immune system, not that strong. Thymosin alpha 1 is like 100 times stronger on the immune modulation, but it has some effect. And of course, that video, that podcast with tailor-made guy, Ryan Smith, where he talks about the dangers of peptides. And me, I see that, and I heard that language before about everything I ever tried. And see, if you look at studies, everything will give you cancer. Because all those studies, they look at one pathway. I think I talked about that.
Yeah, you did.
What you have to look is the net effect. And yes, there may be a pathway that is pro-cancer, But at the same time, there is another pathway that is anti-cancer. And okay, at the net effect, which one wins? And that can be modulated by dosages. If you go high dosage, then one pathway continue, the other one stops. So it's a balance of things. What you have to look at, because story is, and particularly thymosin beta-4, it has been used on the ground by athletes for 10, 15 years already. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not more, millions, I would say, on the planet have used it. And let me tell you, if there would have been one case of cancer due to that, we would know about it. You know, everybody would jump on that. Oh,
Right.
And no, that's a clinical experience. No, nobody ever got cancer from using those peptides. Like the GW, the same thing. They talk, oh, cancer everywhere. Yeah, but come on, show me somebody who got cancer because of it. Stop, reading scientific articles, little rats and all that. That's good, that's interesting, and you learn from that. But you still have to have a foot in the real world and see what's happening. And back in my days, there is even that book that came out in the 80s. It was Death. The title was Death in the Locker Room, about the steroid culture and all that. And there's that guy who came out, I don't remember, Hatfield. He was a medical doctor and a powerlifter. And one day in a conference, he said, look, he says, I never saw nobody die in the locker room. He was joking about the fact that, if you look at paper, it's going to give you all kind of disease or problem. But truth is, nobody got cancer from, or like the millions and millions of people using steroids. How many actually did cancer from it? I don't know anybody. Nobody knows anybody. And you read one case and maybe it once they had the cancer that they didn't know, then yes, it promoted the growth of that cancer. That's a different story. But to give you cancer, what you have to be careful about is if you have a cancer, then you have to work differently.
Right.
But it's all clinically.
Yeah. So, but
what is really happening?
Right. But for the TB500, so is it going to be more focused on the tissue, like on that's it? So it won't do anything else. Okay.
That's right.
Well, so that'd be a great one for like the performance, muscle building, repair group that we were going to talk.
Or you break a bone, you break, you tear a ligament, a tendon, or you throw in a mix. Maybe we'll make a mix, 50-50 of both peptides, so you get the best of both worlds.
Right.
It would be a bit cheaper overall because you get both. One is cheaper than the other one, and you would get a more potent effect on the healing. With sideway, you get the other little things happening.
So that's interesting. So sorry, because there's a question coming up, which actually maybe we'll just jump to that one, because the question was what peptides you might use for chronic tendon issues versus an acute injury. So might you then go to the TB500 for someone who's got for the chronic?
Of course,
because
it would
you
be
need
cheaper
more
and more potent. So you could use much less and of a cheaper product, and still get better results.
Right.
So my question is, how many people? I mean, most suppliers are selling probably thymosin beta-4, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so that means that. Because I know TB500.
Everybody, we tested a few companies. They're all thymosin beta-4.
And they use them interchangeably too. Everyone says it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, that was what the guy brought up. He said you put TB, but actually, is it TB or is it okay? Oh God. Okay, no, so I gave the explanation why, because people they even at the conference, Dr. Seeds, they intermix the terms, and we all understand that we're talking about thymosin beta-4, even when you say TB500, which is not thymosin, but in everyday's language, now it's assumed that it is.
Okay, so now at CanLab, there's going to be differentiation. You're going to have thymosin beta-4 and TB500.
eventually.
Okay.
What about TB1000?
That's that's just a double strength.
I saw that online.
Yeah.
They were selling it for a lot of money too.
Yeah, I know. It's the marketing.
Camel
It's amazing.
racing.
Okay, so let's move on to our next question. So there's the issue of bioregulators, which are in the same family.
No,
do you want to talk about those, or because they're oral,
yes,
right?
no, they're very different. Okay, let me explain to you. The basic reason they're different is in their mode of action.
Okay.
Most peptides we know about, they have receptor on the cell surface or within the cells or on the nucleus, but you know the normal receptors. And that bugged me for a long time because epitalon, which is a bioregulator, you know, most people know by now that, you know, you take twice a year and you're good. And me, I say, yeah, why twice a year? No, I'm going to take it every day. But no, the point is you don't need to, because the actual receptor, if you can call it a receptor, not a receptor, but the peptide introduce itself within the DNA chain, attach itself.
Yeah, and it opens the DNA chain, right?
And yeah, it makes it dilate locally in that area, and each one at different place. But the nice part that once it's attached there, it stays there forever.
Okay.
So that dilation is there forever. So the activity of the peptide continues the same, even after you stop taking it. Why you take it twice a year? Because you have cells that will die. New one will come out. They won't have the peptide. So you renew that pool of peptides in those new cells.
Okay.
So you do it twice a year and bang, you're, I don't know. Hey, let's try that. I'm going to share a few things here. I'm going to share. Okay. Can you see this one?
You sure can.
Yep.
Okay, so here you have the process. First, the peptides introduce itself in the DNA chain.
Yeah.
That dilation of the DNA chain is transferred to the messenger RNA, which goes into the cell and positively express examples, the activities, proteins that are the expressions of those genes. Okay, now how do I come back from that now?
You can stop share.
Yeah, but I lost the, stop share. Okay, well, I'm learning everything. So basically,
all of a sudden I'm the tech queen. Yes.
So basically here you have the thing. It starts as an interaction between the small peptides and the DNA, which provokes a decondensation, that's the term, of the chromatin, which changes the actual expression of the gene. So that's basically is epigenetic at its core, which increase the synthesis of tissue-specific proteins, at the end, regulation of biochemical and physiological processes. I was about to say all positive, but they're not all positive in the sense that there is a list of bioregulators. You have the trademark name by Cavinson and his groups, and from natural extract, where it's extracted from, and a couple we don't have them yet. So you have 25 there, but they found many more of those. But they found that they had no activities. They're there, but probably they're just like, they found them because a bigger peptide broke down, and then it was just floating around.
Like leftover stuff.
Yeah, and wouldn't do anything. And I know that now they have like over 50 more. but they're still not sure. They're in the process of finding out what they do, if
Okay.
they do something, and if they do, if it's positive or not.
Okay.
So that's they're
So for the
finding out.
25, so for the list
But
of
those 25, they know to do something and to have a positive effect.
so
And now
these are
quite a few
oral,
are,
right? Sorry.
no, I was just saying quite a few of them are used. So they use them in the medical system. Quite a few of these, don't they?
Yeah, okay, that's another thing. You can buy them. What you buy, and that's another funny thing. Even those guys, they have a marketing thing. Because they do sell in pharmacies the capsules that everybody knows,
Yeah, that's
Ventacor
what
and
you
all
see
that.
all over the internet.
And they even sell sometimes on some Russian sites, they sell the extract of a bit like cerebralizing, which is brain extract. And then you have the pure peptide. And the difference between the three is this. The capsules, you will have 200 milligrams of extract, not of peptide, of the actual peptide, but of the glandular extract.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know what's the percentage or how many milligrams of the actual peptides you have in it. They don't mention that. And whatever it is, a very small percentage will reach the blood flow because most of it will be digested.
Right.
So if you take a capsule that has 200 milligram of, I don't know, brain extract, then maybe you have 10 milligrams of the actual peptides for the brain that you want. And because it's oral, maybe half a milligram or a milligram will make it to the blood flow. I'm not saying they're bad to take, but you won't get, if you make calculation, the more bang for your buck, you're still better with the injected peptide. Now you have the injectable, because somebody was asking on the forum, on one of the groups, they say, yeah, I got the injectable, it's 10 milligrams per ml. I say, yeah, 10 milligram of extract, not 10 milligram of the peptide. We don't know how much of the peptide, but it's maybe, I don't see it being much, maybe 2-3%, because it's the whole gland.
But the gland has effect as well, right? Like
well, I mentioned that before. I was talking to my doctor last year who prescribes Armour for the thyroid.
Yeah.
And beside the fact that he prefers it, better people feel better and all that, he was telling me he saw in his patient, it takes time, like months and months and years. Slowly, there is an improvement in the thyroid function, and he didn't know why. And I say, well, I'll tell you why. Because you have the bioregulator peptide in the extract, and they take it every day, every day, every day. A bit of it make it to the system, so eventually it does work. It does what it's supposed to do. But it takes a long time. But
so you're saying it's the peptide that helps to regenerate the endocrine gland.
There you go.
Right.
But very little of it, and still you see an effect that takes years. You would have that effect in weeks if you would inject straight up the bioregulator. So again, me, the way I see it is, okay, because they're not that expensive, the capsules.
No.
You do the peptide twice a year. And in between, you can do the capsules, to kind of maintain the levels and whatever. I wouldn't expect huge results. If it's preventive, again, it's always, are you talking preventive or therapeutic? Preventive, even if half a milligram makes it, or a quarter of a milligram, well, long term, it will make a difference. But that's the thing, coming back to the marketing part of it, all the studies that Cavinson made were done with injected peptides.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I don't see any of the injectable stuff online.
He backs up all the sales of the capsules with those studies where those results were done with injected peptides. So, that's the marketing thing, they say, yeah, it's peptides.
So it's like the poor man's peptide, kind of.
Well, not
Because
the
they're
poor
very,
men.
but they're pretty inexpensive by comparison.
They are, but again, if you could inject minute dosage of the injectable, and it would be probably even cheaper than the capsules.
Okay.
To get that
And
minute effect.
And the people that are, the people that are trying this stuff, they're not, most of them aren't trying to do preventative stuff. They want to see results quickly.
Yeah,
And
that's
the feedback I've been hearing is, we've tried them and we don't really notice anything. And then that's when I noticed that you started to carry a couple of them. And I'm like, all right, well, these are, this is the pure peptide version of this. I'm like, it's got to be more potent.
Yeah, and again, you have differences too, even in dosages. What you would do, like epitalon, you do 100 milligrams twice a year. That's still, that's not a therapeutic dosage, but you will, let me show you this chart.
That's not even a therapeutic dose?
See, no, that's a preventive. It's an anti-aging. That's a prevention. You're not.
So you could take even more?
Oh yeah, of course. And I've seen with cancer people, it's ridiculous the difference. 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams a day, overnight changes in their quality of life with epitalon only, like huge difference.
Really?
Those are the graphics of using epitalamine or epitalon alone or with Timalin, and there are other studies where it would be epitalon with Violin, and that's the kind of results you see in terms of decreased mortality and in groups. It's
okay.
amazing.
So this is Cavinson's study, right? That he did over 15 years.
Yeah, one was done over 12 years, and the other one on 6 years.
Well, the thymaline's really interesting, right? Because that makes so much sense.
Thymus. Listen, if you have a strong immune system,
yeah,
everything will be better. You won't get as sick, and it makes sense. You're less sick. You're going to live longer because eventually, you get sick and you don't recover, and you die.
So how much of the Thymalin were they using in that? Do you know?
Same. It was
10 milligrams?
Some study, it's funny because some study quotes 50 milligrams twice a year, and others it quotes 100 milligrams. So I go for the full 100 milligrams.
Go big.
Yeah. So
that's a what is it? It's only a couple peptide sequence of the thymus. The thymolin?
It's it would be, they found that it was kind of a fraction of the thymosin peptide,
yeah.
And I suspect that's why some people suggest now as an anti-aging practice to do thymosin alpha 1 twice a year as an anti-aging measure. And I think it's a good idea. But that's the same thing. I like to compare. There is a peptide, it's...
Cardilax?
No, it's for the pancreas.
I got them up right now. I'm looking.
It's oh boy, too many names. Look for prostate, thymus, thyroid, brain, bone marrow. Where is it? Kidney.
There's a lot of them.
Pancreas, pancreagen. That was easy. Okay, you have to keep in mind those peptides will literally repair their target organ. So with that one in particular, pancreagen, they took mice and injected them with alloxan. Alloxan is a drug that kills the beta cells of the pancreas. So from one day to the next, one injection, they all
type 1 diabetes.
Full-fledged type 1 diabetes. So they had two groups of mice. One that they would inject water because it's like double blind. Even the researcher,
Even the little mice. Yeah.
Yeah, even the mice did no.
You need no nocebo, no placebo.
No, that's why I said
Yeah.
before. Russians, they're very strict and very true with their studies. It's the ethic of things that is different. But when they do a study, you can count that it's well done. So, and they did 2 courses. That was more therapeutic, right? But they did 2 courses of pancreatin, and I could share those one too, because
So someone with type 1 diabetes right now, if they could get their hands on pancreatin, would they reverse their type 1 diabetes? If they regenerate their pancreas, has it been done, or it's still theoretical based on mouse models?
no, that's not the one. That's a good question. And saying that, I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I figured as much.
I wish I knew.
Sounds like a good experiment.
But listen, let me explain to you what happened with the mice. Basically, within a month, they would bring back their blood sugar to normal. Meaning that the pancreas started to secrete
Yeah, so they regenerated again. The islet cells, yeah?
There you go, right up. So it did work with the mice. I didn't find any studies on humans. I don't know. I don't have personal experience with it. I know that we have it now, so it should be on the website, I think, next week. 5 more. But I don't know if it's going to be as dramatic as an effect. But within a month, those mice were cured, basically, of diabetes type 1. So I can't say that much about the mice.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, that's pretty flippin' fascinating. All right, let's move on to our next question then.
Okay.
How about this one? So kids and peptides. So interestingly enough, I guess we're talking now about, and I think in particular, this person was talking about children who are autistic and who've got some severe issues. Like, I mean, I know that was it Dr. Seeds or someone was talking about giving peptides to a 14-year-old, but I think in this case, this person may be talking about younger kids. And, you know, from what I know, like the thymus gland is still very vibrant in a child.
Yeah.
So do you want to mess with that stuff? But yet when you have a child who's autistic and has all kinds of issues, what do you, is there any
well, in that particular case, and with a child like under 12, so to say, you have to be very careful because you know the way and the way the brain reacts, and you're talking about the brain. Codeine, you take codeine, I take codeine, we're gonna pass out. You know, it makes you sleep. You give codeine to an 8-year-old, it's like giving him a cup of sugar. He's gonna jump all over the place. You have at 12, there is a change in the brain maturity that many drugs have the inverse effect that they have on adults. Codeine is the perfect example. You see that with other drugs too. Peptides, I wouldn't see that happen, but you would be talking about, I don't know, if you ask me, would I do it with my child or would I, you know, that's 2 different things. If it was my child, I would throw in everything. I would be confident to use peptides with my children.
But as of yet, there's no work really been done.
That's
in
that
me. Area. Like clinically, there's no work. Yeah.
No, because nobody wants to do it. But like there was no clinical studies on anything.
Yeah.
You know, science, they don't. Science is the history of clinical practice. You know, most of the time, scientists, they don't say, oh, it doesn't pop out of their head. No, they see what is done and it works. And then they say, okay, let's go see why. Okay, does it really work? Or is it like placebo or whatever? And why does it work? And bang, they come up with some studies. Less nowadays, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
so many times science is the history of clinical work. They just go back and explain what
they
was
did, what they
known
saw
already. That's why personally I would be confident about doing it, because I have a personal experience, a clinical experience with a lot of people, and I've tried things. I've been bold sometimes, first with myself, and through this it always served me good. I think I have a good instinct for that. So because of all that, by no means I want to have people go do it because I would,
It's a personal opinion. Yeah, it's not a clinical
very
opinion.
personal. I'm a very bold person, and personally I would do it. Like if I told you some of the things I've done, you'd say, no, you're crazy. And when I look back, I say, yeah, I was crazy. But I've done it. But I know.
You also have an understanding of the pathways that you're exploiting sometimes, though. I mean,
I would do research and everything. It's what you called educated guess.
Yeah.
It's not like out of nowhere. It's like, okay, from what I've seen before, it kind of makes sense. Or no, don't do that. And again, that's what you get. Even Dr. Seeds, all have all the protocols he gave in the conference, and he did it to protect himself, which is normal, what I'm doing right now. But at the end, he would say, listen, those are base protocols. He said, after that, it's up to you to tweak with that and to find out what works the best. Me, what I understood is this. Okay, we give you the minimum dosages that will work. If you want to try higher dosages, more of this, then, and that's when it becomes an art.
Yeah.
And an art, the definition of an art is to do something hard, but it looks easy. That's when you find a real artist. They do say, oh, it's easy. Yeah, until you try it. So, and that's why I wouldn't tell, just jump into it because I say so. I do have an extensive background in that. And but again, if you talk about autism and attention deficit, I don't think it would make a huge difference. I still believe that's more of a nutritional approach.
It's more of a gut. Well, it's more of a gut issue. I mean, the question is also
or the deficiency in omega-3 and DHA in the brain and carnitine and just basic stuff that is lacking. And you start like 6 months. With the mother 6 months before she gets pregnant, if it's planned, and you don't get those problems when you plan a good supplement regimes.
Yeah.
From the start.
Also, I mean, I think with autism, I mean, it's a big subject, but I think there's a lot of evidence that some of these kids, for whatever reason, are sequestering heavy metals, whether it's exposure or metabolically, like something's happening with their metabolism. Like there's more than just omegas at play, and probably it's different for different kids. But anyway, but for this question,
no, I understand.
Yeah,
yes,
this person was also asking about like kids who have gut issues and allergies and autoimmune. So, but I think your answer would probably be the same.
What I would do with kids to be on the safe side is go with the BioRegulators.
Right.
That by no means I don't see any harms in those BioRegulators.
No, you mean the capsule version, right?
Yeah. I would go with the capsules with kids, but I would take more than what's suggested, maybe a few capsules more every day. But I would go with the capsules, yes, and with because at the end they're extracts of organs.
Right.
So it's not worse than, let's say, liver. You eat liver or a brain, people are going to jump back. But, when I lived in Mexico, Sunday morning, you go in Mexico City, every place, those little stands like Mexican, they're crazy for that, or at least in the capital, they eat brain tacos.
Yeah.
You have the brain, the cow brain, and they chop it up, I never tried it.
It's like a
But I've heard
delicacy.
yeah, it's supposed to taste. I was talking with this guy a month ago. He lives in Florida, he's Dominican, and he's in that movement of eating only meat and all that. But he understood that the meat diet, to be real, you need to eat the organs too. So he started to eat the liver and the kidneys, and eventually he said, "Well, the brain." And he was telling me, he says, "Wow!" And the guy is picky, but he said, "No," he said, it tastes good."
Does not. I've had it. I hated it. My grandmother would put it in omelet, and like there's a
Oh, no,
particular
you have to eat it as it is. You don't cook it or anything.
Listen, raw?
Listen to that. When I was a kid, my mom, she would cook rabbits, right? And when my uncles were invited to eat, my father and his brothers would fight for the rabbit brain. And the eyes. They would tell me those are the best you'll get in the animal, taste-wise. And sometimes they would offer us, and we'd say no. And he said, "Oh, good, so I'll sell for me." He was happy we wouldn't take it. So it cannot be that bad.
All right. Well, let's just say it's a personal thing. Okay, what's our next question, Jeff?
Well, we wanted to talk about the growth hormone versus the peptide versions, like CJC, ipamorelin.
There is this guy who he asked the questions, and he wanted Tim, his name. Tim wanted an answer on that. Yeah, there is a difference. It turns out that the peptides, besides stimulating the pituitary to secrete growth hormone, have effects in other tissues. So actually, I brought it up. Where? As an example. Yeah, okay. I'm going to share that.
Well, we know that, from what I heard, that supplementing actual growth hormone is a lot different than how the body secretes it, in the pulses that you can get used in like the ipamorelin and CJC.
Yeah, you see, like they took an example with Exalerin, which GHRP, but it says it works on macrophage and adipocytes independently of the GH secretion. It changed the phenotypic expression of the adipocytes from white to bat, from white
to brown fat?
Brown fat to brown fat, which is a good thing. And it actually affects the transcription, I'm just reading now, of over 1,000 genes. So yeah, there is a difference per se. And if you talk about, both you have to time, basically. So if you talk growth hormone alone, you have to time it, so you do produce IGF-1, so, the meals and everything, and, you do it before bedtimes, or you may decide like right after training is a good time. First time you wake up, it's another good time. So if you're looking at small amounts of GH, if you are supplementing with, like, let's say 2 IUs, 2 IUs of GH, like for an anti-aging protocol, then maybe for sure the peptides can 100% replace the GH. So it's going to be cheaper. You'll get the same effect, the same quantity of GH, plus the other effects that are not from the GH, but from the peptides in other tissues. So there is a big plus there.
Right.
Now, if you talk about an athlete, and I won't go into dosages, but an example who takes 10 IUs a day of growth hormone, well, no, you would need to shoot yourself like every 2 hours, 24 hours a day, wake up in the night, shot. That's not practical. And I'm not sure you would get 10.
You're talking
10
about the
IUs.
peptides now.
Yeah. So yes, if you look at higher dosages, there is a point where there is so much you can secrete. And if you look at a higher number, then you can complement, add some, you decrease, you introduce the peptides and decrease how much hormones you are taking. And then you have the same effect and you have the extra effect from the peptides. But for small amounts, I would choose always first the secretagogues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard is it won't get you to a super physiological level. It gets, it'll get the body back to it.
Well, you could actually, if you shoot many times during the day, like.
Oh yeah.
At one point, many years ago, I was more into training and all that. I know it doesn't show now, but yes, I was. I had a pretty decent shape, and I was shooting 4 times a day, and within a month and a half, I had that carpal tunnel syndrome, which is a sign of high growth hormone levels, like too high. That was too much. And
was that with Summerellin or?
No, it was back then already. It was with CGC 1295 no DAC and ipamorelin. Yes.
Really? And how long ago was that?
That was in 2008, 2009.
That's crazy. I didn't know that stuff has been around that long.
Oh yeah. That's been
It's been on the underground for a long time.
Oh, but yes, you wouldn't believe.
I thought ipamorelin and testosterone they keep saying that's the newest generation. I thought that was within that.
Yeah, relatively.
Yeah.
The second and third generation came out like very fast. It's not like it took 10 years in between. You had the JHRP 6, then 2, and then bang, and like within months, the new generation would come out.
Well, and I think the rate of release is going to increase now as well. Like it's every day. It's like it seems to have gone past a tipping point.
Well, no, the thing is, now what they do, they don't look for new peptides. Well, some people do because there are more, but that number we already know more than 7,000 peptides.
Yeah.
But we don't know all what they do. So now exactly. The investigation is okay. Some group, they say, okay, let's look at what does it do. So they don't need to look for it. So the first step, which, okay, now we know it's there, let's throw it in some cells and see what happens, and bang. And then they say, okay, this one do this, and that's happening fast now.
Yeah.
And my prediction, more so that now pharmaceutical companies found a way to patent peptides, not the peptides, but the applications. So that's why now you have thymosin alpha-1 that is patented for its applications, tesamorelin, and you're going to see now there is a company, thymosin beta-4 should be soon.
I heard PT-141's coming out too soon.
Yeah, it is. But the peptide itself is not, they cannot patent it, but they patent the application of. So for companies like mine, it doesn't make a difference because we don't openly claim it's good for that. We just sell it.
Yeah, you're not marketing it for that.
Well, it stops another company to make it and sell it for the same purpose. So now, if suddenly they would find, that other company would find a different application of that peptide. Then they could market it, but for that application. After that, it's up to the physician. But I think the physician would have the obligation, okay, if it's for that application, they have to use that brand. You know, that's the game now. Probably it costed them a lot in lobbying and everything for that to go through, but it did go through. Now they can do that, and that's what's happening now.
Right.
And because of that, and my prediction, 5-7 years, they're pretty much all going to be in pharmacies under prescription, not compounding, just normal pharmaceutical companies selling them. And if and obviously they will push their sales, so they will educate doctors, and I see a high percentage of prescriptions in the future being peptides.
Oh, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, the new medicine, and well, I'm talking more than 50% of prescriptions. You go see a doctor, peptides.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I was listening to a podcast last week. I think it was the Superhuman Radio one, where this one doctor was talking about how if you have thymosin alpha-1 in the house and you're coming down with the flu.
Oh yeah.
You use it twice a day, and I think fairly high dose, like maybe one. I don't know if she gave a dose. Did she? I don't remember. But
1.5.
Talking about Sarah Turner.
Yeah, I think it was 1.5 milligrams twice a day.
Yeah.
Was it milligrams? Anyway,
yeah.
Whatever the dose was.
Milligrams.
If you have a healthy person, though, you take 10 grams of glutamine every hours. You're going to have the same effect, though. It's going to be cheaper.
Of glutamine?
10 grams of glutamine?
Yeah, glutamine at high dose is a very strong immune system booster.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so yes. All right, let's move on to our next question, because we're going to break through our hour pretty quickly here. Our next question is, what peptides would you recommend for gaining muscle and strength? Can you do it all with peptides, or is it necessary to also phase in SARMs?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't count on peptides to build the physique at all, unless you're older, like I'm talking 50 and up, where the deficiency of growth hormone, for example, is there. So yes, you will see a difference. But more so to regain what you had, not to build things that you never had. Right. So if you take a younger person, even straight up GH by itself, you take a guy who trains in the gym every day, does everything right, throw in growth hormone, it won't make much of a difference. It's kind of the icing on the cake. In that case, I would throw in SARMs. So you're going to get much more.
So if what you're really after is physique, you're going to have to go play with the SARMs.
Yeah, and then you can throw it some growth hormone secretagogue.
Yeah.
But, that's more like icing on the cake. You won't get the bulk of the effect won't be from the peptide.
Okay. And here we go. So this brings us back. So we're on question number 9. We're getting close to the end here. Do you have an opinion? And I think you kind of talked about this earlier, but we actually talked about this. We talked about the thymus bioregulators versus the thymosin alpha-1.
Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. So as pancreagen is the bioregulator of the gland that secrete insulin.
Yeah.
Thymosin alpha-1, it's about the same thing. If you take thymosin alpha-1, you're not doing anything to fix the thymus. So a good thing is in time, if you have out of whack immune system, yes, you use thymosin alpha-1, but throw in some thymolin or vilin to fix the thymus, and long-term look at bioregulator to upregulate the thymus glands. So you won't be dependent on the thymosin alpha-1.
Oh.
So is Timolin, is that a bioregulator or no?
Okay, no, okay. Oh boy, I wrote about that. Timolin and timalin. Timalin is the dipeptide 2-amino acid bioregulator. Timolin, it's not a bioregulator. It's another fraction of the protein, I think, thymosin. You know, the huge proteins where they take those branch, thymosin, alpha-1, beta-4. So timulin is, I don't remember how many amino acids. And most websites, they sell timulin as timalin.
Okay.
And I
So it's
even
like the TB500.
and even if you write, if you go on Alibaba and type in timalin with an A, you'll get listening. But then you find out that even the Chinese, they will sell you timulin. They kind of try to sell you the idea that.
Okay, so which is which again? So thymulin
with an A, timalin.
Yeah.
Is the bioregulator. It's
so
only
that is the bioregulator.
Only 2 amino acids. Timulin with a U is not a bio. It's a good peptide to use.
So is that a fragment? Timulin?
I believe it is another fragment or another byproduct of the thymus, and it does regulate in some way the immune system, but it does nothing at fixing the core problem, like a weak thymus or immune system.
Right. So it's almost like taking insulin versus fixing your pancreas.
There you
right?
go. So, of course, if you have a deficient pancreas, I'm not going to tell you stop taking insulin. We'll give you the bioregulator. Probably you'll be dead by the time it worked.
Yeah.
So, no, take your insulin, but start to use the bioregulator, and eventually you'll see that, oh, I need less, you control your blood glucose. You say, oh, now it's too high. I have to decrease my insulin intakes, and bang, now you're fixing the problem. You're not patching it.
And that's what seems really exciting about the bioregulators is, everyone talks about getting to the root of the issue. And if you can, reboot these systems and get them to rebuild properly, then you can really get some long-term change.
That's why to me, they're like two different classes.
But complementary in a way.
Like you have the same thing in naturopathy as in medicine. It's called medicine. It's allopathic medicine. Mm-hmm. You have allopathic naturopathy, and you have allopathic peptide therapies. Allopathic means you fix the symptoms, but you don't look at the root cause of it. Mm-hmm. So if you have a headache, you go see a doctor, is going to take ibuprofen, right, or aspirin. You go see a naturopath, is going to tell you, okay, take that plant. That's going to help, but it's not going to fix the root problem. It's just going to get rid of the headache. And now we see that with peptides. You have this, take those peptides. Yeah, you're going to fix things. You're going to regulate things. Example, Crohn's disease. You take BPC, high dosages for a certain time. That's why I say you're not seeing a healing of the condition. You see a remission of, for as long as you take the peptides and everything, and then you have to continue. But what did you do to fix the core? Why do you have Crohn to start with? That's what you have to look at eventually. Yeah. No, do the BPC, so at least you get relief, and then
but change your lifestyle.
Without pain, without anything, then we'll look at what's the core of the problem. So I see the bioregulators, and when I started that company, that's what I had in mind to begin with. First, Epitalon, and I wanted to come out with all the other bioregulators. And then the other ones came out, and then the SARMs, and it took enough. But now I'm steering back to what I wanted initially, is to offer those bioregulators that they are expensive, but not that expensive because it takes twice a year, so it kind of amortigates. Because out of 12 months, you're going to be 11. You're not going to take it.
So is there a general dosing for those? Because it looks like they mostly come in 100 milligrams. So is it similar to the Epinolon?
All the studies, Kevinson, I don't know anybody who tweaked with it. It's the same protocol, man, woman.
So is it 20 milligrams for 10 days, or is it 10 milligrams for 20?
I prefer 5 for 20.
5 for 20?
Yeah. Or even 3 for 33 days, something like that. And they're amazingly stable. They won't degrade in a month.
So if we shake them, it doesn't break them?
We can that's
okay. Yeah, because I had some.
Don't shake
there was
the peptides.
There was
email for that.
Oh, I know you did.
Oh boy, yeah,
we're destroying it.
You sent me out for slaughter, man.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked you to do it.
Okay, I can take it.
Even I cringed. I was like, oh no, she's shaking it.
Yeah, I know. Some people probably started to cry or something. No. We'll test it. That's another test I added after the feedbacks from the video. We will test it.
I've been using it, and I'm loving that stuff. So.
But listen, as all those HPLC tests we show on the webpage, percentage of quality, maybe people, they don't know, but the last step after, we purify, we do everything, we filter, we do all kind of things with the peptide in liquid just before we put in vial. The last step is we put it in ultrasonic bath. It may seem like nothing, but there is not one molecule of the peptide that is not shaken. And for about a minute, to be sure that it's 100% dissolved. So that's, shake that like that, that's nothing. Put it in an ultrasonic bath for a minute, that is shaking. And they're all shaken. And then we do the HPLC test, and the purity is not affected, but that's shaking at all. But we're going to do it anyway, because people, they want, if you shake it like that, no, we will shake it like that for like 30 seconds. And then right away, we'll take the HPLC before, then shake it, and then retest it, and we'll show the results. I don't know when, it's going to come out soon, but we will do it so people know. And we'll do it, or maybe Peptide Science, you could ask them to do it. I'm sure they would be happy to do that kind of
I can't. I don't buy from Peptide Science, so I can't help you there. I have no relationship with them.
In their US labs, they could do that, I'm sure.
Okay. Okay, last question, Monsieur Tremblay.
Yes, sorry.
You've done, yeah, I know, it's okay. You can get your digs in, it's okay. And I don't care, because it's not directed at me. So we know that you've tried MOTS C and and NAD injections. So I know the answer to this because you told me. Man. But this person wants to know what do you compare and contrast? What do you think is more powerful?
MOTS C.
Yeah, all the way. Even in, right?
When I did, it was like a few days after my podcast with Ben Greenfield. I was in Silicon Valley with Matt Cook, and I had NAD+. So that's not even half a year. And wow, I loved it. When it kicked in, energy, everything, wow. So with MOTS C, I got the same thing. But it was like NAD+ on steroids. Oh boy. Listen, there was nights I would sleep only 3 hours because of work and things, and 3 hours I would sleep. The next day, I wouldn't feel any fatigue. I would go through the day same as if I had slept 7-8 hours. it was like, whoa, what's happening? You know, I should be tired. I don't feel like, no, wow. Now I've been on MOTS C for 3 weeks. Now I'm going to do it for a month and then and do one shot. I'll see what happens when I stop. I don't know if that effect is transient, only when you take it, or
Because you're
if you,
taking it every day, right?
every day, every day.
And you're doing a dose every day that some people do in a week.
Yeah, but
You're doing a classic go big
well,
or go home.
that's what they
He's got that
propose.
syringe in his hand right now.
Oh yeah, that needs to be.
I'm like, is that a syringe?
Sorry. No, listen. It depends, and I'm going back in 2 weeks. I'll be back with Matt. I shipped him, I think, 10 vials of MOTS C for himself to try. Did you see his? Matt did a thing on Facebook, you know, where it's not on posted, but it's on top there. I'll send you the link. But at one point, he does IVs of peptides to Ben Greenfield.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look, it shows them very fast, but you see they're my peptides.
Oh, product placement.
So I believe that Ben is still alive today, so it's all good.
It's all good.
But I'll know in about 8 days. I'll stop, and then I'll see how I feel after a week, too, if that effects remains like with the NAD+. And then that's why I'm going to see him again to discuss some of his new therapies and we can introduce peptides.
And so, are you taking anything for? Are you supplementing at all with anything to mitigate any extra reactive oxygen species that are being produced? Like when because the MOTS C basically boosts the mitochondria to be more productive, right? So in theory, do you somehow need to provide more substrate or to mitigate the extra activity of the mitochondria? Because there's a downside to that, right?
Yeah, of course. That's one thing I'd like to mention too. And you know, I don't want to sound naive about peptides. You know, I do believe that in nature, that Stephen Hawking would say it, you know, there is no free lunch.
Oh, I was just going to say it.
So probably somewhere, somehow you pay a price. Yes. But it's always a question of, you know, like, okay, I've read today on another place, some people, they were asking, you know, about testosterone replacement therapy. And it seems that people with high testosterone, they live longer. They live a bit less than people with low testosterone.
Yes, but they're happier.
Okay, and the guy, I love the guy's answer. He says, yeah, sure. He said, in nukes, you know, that castrated men, they live longer. That's proven. So what do you prefer? You know, so I'll be a bit blunt, but you know, do you want to keep your balls and live a little less, or have your balls cut off and you will live longer? It's a question of quality of life too. Sure. What do you want? It's not all living longer. To me, it's not.
No, of course not. It's quality of life. But I'm just saying, like, let's say if you did need more support in another way, you could provide it. It's not.
Yeah, I didn't think that far. I just.
You haven't gone that far. No, because Chris Master.
I just shot it and I love
okay.
it.
No, because Chris Masterjohn, for example, did a really good video on NAD, right? Yes. And he says, you know, if you are going to use NAD, you may need to bring more methyl groups to the party. So you want to either supplement with choline, or there was one other thing he was talking about. Like you basically just want to give your body more methyl donors so you're not depleting.
Oh, but okay. Hey, it's funny because I have here what I take always in the morning. First thing, I think NAC.
Yeah.
I think almost 2 grams of it in the morning. I have that's a Canadian company. It's a multivitamins. I take 6 of tablets. There is that folate thing in it and a bunch of stuff.
That folate thing?
Yeah, you know, I'm a bit dyslexic. I am.
5-methylfolate, yes.
And Cognitex, they don't make it anymore, but with everything, but there is alpha GPC in it. And for people with the brain fog,
Yeah.
in the morning, alpha GPC, 1.2 grams. In the morning with your coffee, no more brain fog.
Really?
Forget MCT, alpha GPC.
But 1.2 grams.
Can you mix that right in with your coffee?
No, well, it's in capsules.
Can you blend it into the coffee?
Well, you could get the powder. I don't know about the taste.
It's a bit of butter.
And I think you wanted to know, yeah, between NAD plus and M&M and
NMR.
Yeah, and the
NR. Sorry, NAD plus.
Yeah, that's
NMN,
another one I
NR.
use sometimes.
Which one's that?
Neogen.
Oh, the true Niagen.
Oh, Niagen.
With quercetin and resveratrol, and I don't get any kickback, but Life Extension, they have very, very good supplements at very good prices.
I actually got a really good NAD given to me last week by, I think the company's Life Sciences. Mm-hmm. And it's an intranasal spray. It's really, I would say that I definitely feel a lift from that when I use it.
I remember a podcast that Ben did on NAD plus, and I don't remember the name of the researcher they had. But see, that's the thing. On paper, NAD plus IV shouldn't work. It shouldn't, because because it's a diphosphate, I think, and because of those phosphate, they cannot enter the cells.
Yeah.
In theory, see, that's a perfect example. On paper, you see that and you say, no, it's not gonna work. You have the therapy and it does work. So sometimes there is more happening than what you see on papers. So the researcher would say, no, don't do it this way because it's not going to work. He kind of didn't understand why people were raving about it, because he said, no, on paper, it's not working, so don't take it. Well, clinically it works, so it's not always on the papers. If people are to do NAD+, and that's kind of common practice, you do the therapy, and in between you do those supplements, so you can wait longer. You kind of maintain the levels.
So you're saying the NMN and the NR?
Yeah. So you still do the IV like to jumpstart, and then maintain the levels. So instead of going every 4 months, maybe you'll need every 8 months, because
I see.
You maintain, or you slow down the decrease again. A friend of mine was very well known in the field, so companies would send him cases, and he told me, just to be sure, he was taking bottles in the same day of those Neogen, and said, no, it does nothing. He said, I get 1 day of IVs and bang, I see the difference right away. So what's happening on papers sometimes doesn't translate in real life. I don't say they don't do anything, but I see them as a supplement to the main therapy. I still believe in the IVs.
Right. Okay.
But coming back to the MOTS C, I should know in about a month, like after I'll maintain. After that, I'll take like 1 shot a week to maintain. So I'll see if I keep that thing going.
Because the MOTS C binds to the mitochondria, right? And so in theory, once that mitochondria,
yeah, but you have that thing where exactly. So that's why you do it after once a week, kind of maintaining. But probably you'll see a drop eventually. Because
MOTS C doesn't last very long in the body, like that. It has a very short life after injection.
In the blood, it doesn't last.
In the blood,
long. But that's not where you want it, so you don't care if it doesn't last long in the blood.
Yeah, it's not doing anything in the blood.
The blood levels is not a good indicator.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of our questions, I think. Jeff, do you have anything else? No, wait.
Fox 04. Someone was very interested.
Yeah, I'm still alive. Okay, that's the thing. There is so little research done on it, and so little clinical experience with it. Obviously, because of the price, it's hard to get people to say, okay, so that I wanted to do it for okay, because you have to be careful with that product. Somewhere somebody wrote, yeah, the guy died. I don't think he died. I think that, but it can, because it kills senescent cells big time. But for the ratio, it kills about 1 sane cell for every 10 senescent cells that are killed. That's why the next generation they're working on, it's going to kill 100. It's going to be 10 times more dead senescent cells to sane cells. So that's a big jump. That's a big difference. So I think right now with the FOXO4 DRIs as it is, I wouldn't go on the full therapy with it, like 3 months at 3 times a day and all that. Unless you are a cancer patient. They have shown amazing results with cancer people. They would alternate chemotherapy with FOXO4.
Really? Where did they do that? In Russia?
It's those German guy who developed
German guy.
the Kaiser, his name.
Yeah.
He has ongoing research done within cancer patients, and I'll send you the link to the interview and everything, and that links you to other. There is that Facebook page. If you do FOXO4,
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah.
On Facebook, and it's
There's a
gonna
page.
pop out, and they put pretty much all the articles that exist done on FOXO4.
Okay.
You'll find the interview with that doctor, and he talks about the next generation.
Okay.
And he makes the difference clear. It's if you're a pretty healthy person, you want to be careful because you don't want to kill healthy cells. If you're sick or old, then yes, it will make a difference.
Okay.
So me, right now I'm doing it as a preventive measure. You kill a bunch of senescent cells, not all of them. So, I won't be 20 years younger in a month. But, at least to slow down the process for now. So I'm not sure yet, and that's very speculative. Maybe do 3 shots in a week, and then leave it for 2 months, and then do it again 2 months after. Or
couldn't you just do a 5-day water fast?
Oh, that's the thing. The water fast doesn't kill senescent cells. It just makes them dormant. When you start eating again, they pop out again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the autophagy we talk about in a water fast?
Eh?
Doesn't fasting drive autophagy?
Yeah, but we don't know when it starts. Does it start at 3 days, at 7 days, at 14 days, at 30 days?
Well, there's people who think they know. Clearly you don't agree with them.
No, it's not that I don't agree. I don't know, and there is no actual research done on that. People factually didn't document it.
Okay.
You cannot. Sorry, it does happen, yes, but when does it actually start? We don't know. It's a great thing to do, intermittent fasting, 3 days fast for other reasons. But to get rid of senescent cells, I wouldn't count on that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, you really have to, that's the line. And it's not, and that's a good article. It's an interview, but you have the written thing, and the guy is very clear on that. He said it's that line. He said, we want that new FOXO4, I don't know how they're going to call it. doesn't take care of all senescent cells. It's just a part. So probably another company right now is developing another one that will take care of another aspects of senescence. So in a few years, you're going to have a whole therapy around peptides, but it's going to be more than one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the birth of, and at this point, I see it as a good peptide to use carefully, not too much. Don't go crazy. Don't get. When I discovered, I say, okay, we'll do like with the rats and do 3 months at a shot every day. No, don't do that. Don't do that. But, once in a while, I sold a few now, and people, I don't think those who bought, it's not because of the money, because if they bought 2-3 vials, that they can afford it.
Yeah.
But I think they're being prudent, and that's a good thing to do. You may do 2-3 vials and then leave it alone for a few months and then do it again preventively. So whatever you killed there that are sane, then you rebuild.
Yeah.
Senescent cells, they're gone, and then bang, you do it. You go more little step by little steps. So it's gonna take much longer.
Yeah.
But at the end, you would get the same results of getting rid of senescent cells, but don't try to squeeze it in a short period of time.
Right.
That could be damaging.
Okay.
So give time to rebuild. Throw in some BPC so to rebuild faster. Those little damages you do at the same time. And again, it's a question of balance. Always kill 10 times more. So yeah, you do a bit of damage, but you do 10 times more good. So
right. And would you use growth hormone secretagogue at the same time?
I am.
Yeah. To drive the repair and the...
Yeah, I don't do it for that, but yeah. And, a shot of TB500 once in a while. Time isn't better for.
Time isn't better for.
To be precise.
All right.
So yeah, I'm tweaking with those new peptides now, FOXO4, MOTS C, and because they're new. There is nobody can really talk about a big clinical experience with them yet. And paper-wise, it's only basic research done on cells, on animals, and very pinpointed. And it's like, they were asking, okay, and those mice, after they stopped the FOXO4-3, how long did they live? Well, we don't know. They killed them to look at to look at the organs, so
they should save a couple.
Yeah, they should, to see, okay, long term what happens. So but that would be another study. So they get.
Because then you end up with a 6-year-old mice, and you have something to talk about, right? Because they only live 2 years.
Talking of that, a short parenthesis on C60.
Oh, carbon 60.
Carbon 60.
Yeah. The studies on animals, the one that initiated the whole thing, showing that the mice live 90% longer.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, they started to give the C60 to very young mice, not to old mice. So yes, I believe there is, but don't expect, if you start to take C60 when you're 60, you're not going to live 90% longer than expected. You should have taken it when you were 20.
Right.
To have that long-term effect. And I wasn't very well, and I'm still not in the details, but when I had dinner with Ben, at one point I asked him, because I know he talked to people about that, and asked him, what's your take on C60? And his answer was, it's a good product, but don't take too much, because it's a very strong antioxidant at low dosages, but it becomes a very strong pro-oxidant at higher dosages.
And higher dose, yeah.
So you have to be, again, that's another product, you have to be careful. Don't push the dosages. Go for the minimum to have an effect, and don't think more is better. It's not the case with C60.
Yeah, that and LL37.
Yes, with...
Don't push that one too high.
Yeah, no, not a good idea.
No. You're just recovering from that, right, Jeff?
I had to order thymosin alpha-1 really quick.
Okay.
The funny thing is, it actually, thymosin alpha-1, it kind of re-regulated things very quickly.
Yeah, no, thymosin, you know, one of the effect of thymosin alpha-1 for cancer patients, it has a double effect. One, cancer cells, they kind of develop a shell around them that makes them not
Like invisible.
the immune system doesn't recognize them. So thymosin alpha-1 breaks down that shell. It makes them visible. And at the same time, it boosts the immune system. So then they can attack. So you become the medicine against your own system. Your own immune system works against the cancer. So for any kind of cancer, thymosin alpha-1 is a number one.
Is it just for cancer though, or will it do that for other pathogens as well?
I'm not sure. Like I'm probably you're thinking about Lyme and stuff like that.
So Suzanne Turner did say that for Lyme, it does infiltrate and, you know, help the body identify it and break it down.
So see, it's that process. So I didn't know. So
yeah, I think
it makes sense.
Yeah, she implied that it did that for bacteria and organisms that have that cloaking kind of, it's like a cloaking mechanism that it hides, and somehow the thymosin alpha-1 like forces it to express the antigen in a way that the immune system.
So thymosin alpha-1, it's a great and it's an amazing peptide. And again, you know, for anti-aging therapy, it's a good one. But then you're stuck taking it. I like to propose, you know, I make for people when they write to me anti-aging protocol, I do we talked about cycles. So 3 weeks of thymosin alpha-1 every 4 months. It could be part of an anti-aging protocol.
Huh. Okay.
Because of course, if you have immune system on check, any little things like that, it's gonna fix it, you know, like kill what has to be killed.
Perfect. The cleanup. All right. We are well into over an hour and a half, gentlemen. So
really?
I think, yeah, I know time flies when you're having fun. So thank you again, Jean-Francois. This has been great. And we look forward to having you back when, I don't know, when we come up with new questions or what such time as you have some new information to share with us on your, on all
on the page, you know, I have people, I know they were checking on me if I was alive the next day after my first shot, you know, like, I know it was kind of more of a joke, but you know, they were there asking, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah. So, yeah, no, so I mean, listen, it's an amazing field, and I love the work that you're doing, and thank you for being so generous with your information and for helping us out and for making all these amazing peptides available to us.